Okay, we are learning Sefer Pituchei Chotam. Thanks for joining us. We're back at the home studio this week. We don't have our producers in the Hafter Media Lab, but Torah is Torah, and we must learn. So let's get going. We begin Parshas Mishpatim. The Torah opens up with the parsha of Avodim. This is the Eved Ivri specifically. So the Torah tells us, Kisik Eved Ivri Sheisham Yavoid. You'll purchase an Eved Ivri, and some halachas, he works for 6 years, he goes out in the 7th year. If he comes in single, he goes out single. If he's married, then he goes out with his wife. If his master has to give him his wife, and she has kids for him, so then the master keeps the children, and the slave will go out, begapai, who goes out with his guf. But if the Eved says, I love my wife and my master and my kids, I don't want to go out. Or Elohim, his master brings him to Bezdin, and they bring him to the Dallas or to the mezuzah, and they pierce his ear b'martzeya va'avodoi la'olam. Okay, so that's the parsha of Eved Ivri. Rabi Yakov teaches us over here some beautiful, beautiful remez. Number one, he says that this idea of 6 and 7 sounds similar to that of the years of a person's life. A person we know lives, Tehillim tells us, person lives for 70 years. The Shechina is referred to Bas Sheva. It's called Bas Sheva, the daughter of 7. So every Jew's life is dependent upon the Shechina. And it's incumbent on every person to make sure that the Shechina is unblemished and is pure and is gavaldic. So there's a correspondence between the person, a Yid, his life, Knesset Yisrael, a Jewish person, and the Shechina, and that's 70 years. Gavaldic. Now, what do you do with your time? If you become a learned person, you learn Torah Lishma, Gavaldic. But if you learn Torah Shalei Lishma for ulterior motives, not so good. And especially if you have Talmidim and you have your Paskin halachas, which is great things, but if it's all done Shalei Lishma, there's a pagam in it. And for that, it's not so good for a person. But if you do tshuva, and if you do good tshuva, so then of course you come to the next world and everything is going to be amazing for you. So let's see how this plays out in this parsha of the Eved Ivri. So kisuk and Eved Ivri, when you purchase an Eved Ivri, ki, the words ki stand for Rashi Tevis for Knesset Yisrael. Knesset Yisrael we're talking about. What's Knesset Yisrael? Knesset Yisrael is the Shechina. That's where every neshama comes as part of chiluk of the Shechina, of the Knesset Yisrael, the totality of the Jewish people. So kisuk and Eved Ivri, when Knesset Yisrael buys or owns an Eved Ivri, a Jew. What does that mean? Sheishanim Yavoid. When there's a neshama is connected to a guf, so he works for 7 years. Uvashvi Yetze Lachav Shechinam. So he works for 7 years. That's the remez to the Shechina, the Bas Sheva. So that's the connection here between the Yid, the neshama, and the guf. So he's Yetze Lachav Shechinam. Now that could be taken in 2 ways. Yetze Lachav Shechinam can mean 2 things. Chinam, if a person did the right thing with his life and he spent his years rectifying the Shechina, so Chinam, he goes out bleeding. He goes out without any, he doesn't have to worry about any Yisurim, any issues. When he comes to Shemayim, they're going to open the door for him and he's going to go right into Gan Eden. It'll be Gavaldik. That's Chinam B'Leidin. That's one way to read the pasuk. Or you could be Yetzir Lachavshi Chinam. If a person doesn't do the right thing and he doesn't learn Torah for the right reason, and he doesn't do the right thing, then he goes out Chinam, he goes out with nothing. He's got nothing. Yetzir Lachavshi Chinam, he comes out with nothing. More than that, in Begapai Yavai, Begapai Yetzir, if he came in with just his guf, if he was involved as Gansa Leben with taking care of his gapa with his body, then Begapa Yetze, he leaves the world. Begapa with his guf, that's all he's got. He doesn't have anything to take with him to the next world. That's a person who's begapoy yavai. But in Bali Shahu, if he's a person who understands that he gets married, that means he gets involved in Torah. Isha is compared to Torah. He gets involved in Torah, and he learns, and he dives into his ma'asim tovim. Then v'yatze ishta imai, he goes out with his Torah, escorts him into the world to come. Okay, it doesn't get better. But if in Madain Avitan Leisha, if a Kadosh Baruch Hu, his Adain, gives him a wife, that means he gives him Torah, but he doesn't do the right thing with his Torah. He learned, Kadosh Baruch Hu gives him a Gavaldik Matanim, but he learned Shalei L'Shma. He learns for ulterior motives. And then he might even have Talmidim, Banais. Banais means a lashon of Bainei, people who paskan halacha that are Bainei Olam, that build up the world. But it's all Shalei L'Shma. So then, if he did it for the wrong reasons, he doesn't go out with anything. He goes out with just his guf. But if he says, I love HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and I love the Torah that I learned, and I love my Talmidim, I don't want to go out with nothing. Then he won't. It means if he does tshuva, of course he can do tshuva. HaKadosh Baruch Hu accepts it with love. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu, if a guy spent his whole life, not like you get it scot-free. You have to earn it. Elikim is always din. That means you have to earn it. So that can come in various ways. How are you going to have to earn turn your Torah Shema to Torah Shema? It's got to come through tshuva. There are two types of tshuva. There's something called tshuva tatar and tshuva ilah. There are two levels of tshuva. And that's merumas here, v'higisha el hadelas. We bring him to the door or to a mezuzah. You can do tshuva Eloi, an amazing, awesome tshuva, which has to do with the Shem Havaya, where it's represented by the Dalet. You know, the way we spell, we say the word Dalet, but it's really, the way it's spelled out is Dallas. So in Hadalad, it means, is a reference to the Shem Havaya, the Shem Yudke Vavke. So V'yigisha, you can do a tshuva, that's a tshuva Eloi, that has to do with the Shem Havaya. Or you could do a tshuva, which is a gavaldik, but it doesn't hit it's not the same level of tshuva. That's represented by the mezuzah, which is the gematria of 65, which is the same gematria of the Shem Adnos, which refers to a lower level. It's not the Shem Havaya. So you could do two types of tshuva. You could do it me'yiri, you could do it me'ahava. You could do tshuva, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu will be thrilled with it. Then Baratza Adainav as Ozna B'Martzeh Baruch will pierce your ear. That means he'll make it that you'll always hear him. You're not going to go away. Another remez Rabi Yakov says is that a Martzeya is a gematria 400, the same as the word L'Shem Yichud is 398 plus 2 for each word gives you 400. That means if you do tshuva, HaKadosh Baruch will make it that everything you do is L'Shem Yichud, to sanctify, to unify HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So let's just chazer over. That means if a person is learning Torah Shalei Lishma, but he does tshuva, then he can turn everything around, and then he won't be begapa. He's not going to go he's not going to go achinam. He's not going to go out begapa. Then he'll go into the next world and he'll get gavaldig escharva avadei la'olam. Kosh Baruch Hu serves. He'll serve me forever and ever. So that's a gavaldig chizuk we get here from this week's beautiful remez from Rabi Yakov. To remember that we have the Knesset Yisrael, Ki Yikne Eved Ivri. We have the ability to be Knesset Yisrael, to live 70 years of rectifying the Shechina, and then Yitzhak Shechina, to go out with a geschmack, to go out free from din. But if we learn Shalei Lishma, we're not going to go out so well. But we'll be able to do tshuva. And if a Yid does tshuva, then L'Shem Yichud, he'll be able to rectify everything. He'll live his life with a Yichud Kudshabrichu, and he'll be Va'avadai La'olam. Have a wonderful, amazing, awesome